This is Chris McCabe of e-commerce. Chris doing another Ask an Amazon Agency video for you today. Talking to John Aspinall of PickFu. John, how are you doing?
I am freezing cold in New York City, but it's getting warmer, so I can't really complain. But I'm good, Chris. It's good to see you, pal. Finally, after
Yeah, I know.
many messages back and forth.
If it makes you feel better, I'm just as cold up in Boston. So you have company. And it will eventually get warmer. It might only get warm after we're back from the Prosper show.
That's the worst is when you travel someplace warm and then you have to come back and it's cold and then it's like, did I really want to leave? And that's when you contemplate just changing your name, getting a new social and running away. Oh, wait, that's just me with 3 kids that are crazy at home?
Oh, I contemplate that every night before I go to sleep. But we will be in warmer climates in Vegas for the moment. Maybe I'll try to make a analogy here with the cool temperatures in terms of it's been kind of a tough winter for Amazon sellers, for brand owners. First, there was this idea, well, Amazon announced they're not raising fees for the whole year. Then there were some non-fee fees, some other challenges that are costly. And I think financial pressures are squeezing people from multiple sides to the point where they need advanced strategies. They need risk assessment capabilities. They need to do a lot of ops, maybe improvements or efficiencies, and they need real-time planning. And of course, you came to our Seller Velocity conference last year. I think we might have met around that time, but I've followed your LinkedIn. You're somebody in the know who's got lots of good ideas and suggestions for people who are trying to up their game, improve their listing optimization, their visibility, their sales rank, but I'm sure you have other suggestions for people too. So where do you start that conversation? Let's say you're beginning work with a new brand. They got their feet wet a little bit, but they need to improve things in order to stay competitive on Amazon. What's the first 1 or 2 things you start with?
Yeah, I think before I say that, going back to your initial kind of statement about Amazon not raising fees, but then there's new fees that aren't fees. I kind of called this when everyone was talking about, oh, Amazon's not raising fees. I said, wait for the shoe to drop, because when a monster company like Amazon is outrightly saying very explicitly, we're not raising these fees. It never said there's not going to be any new fees that you don't know about, right? So everyone was so pumped over that, but I was like, just wait for it, because Amazon is not a charity, right? And I talked to lots of brands from my end of things, doing my, consulting and agency side of it. And the first thing they ask me is, or they talk to me about is, man, I really gotta get a better CTR and a CVR. These fees are killing me. I immediately stop them in their tracks. I say, take the fees aside. The fees are always going to be the fees. Count your blessings today. Tomorrow they might be 10% more. In a month they might be 20% more. But if you look at what the cost of doing business is, if you're not on Amazon, what does that look like? How much? Sure, you can make more money on your D2C website, but are you making enough volume by doing that? It's literally the same argument of FBM versus FBA. Oh, Amazon's pick and pack and all this kind of stuff. I make more money with FBM. Of course you do. But overall, you make more money per unit on FBM. You make more money with FBA overall because no one's buying FBM unless they're forced to buy it and there's no other option. So that's the thing. You have to take the good with the bad and not focus on it. So I tell people, who cares? If they double the fees tomorrow, what are you going to do? You're going to stop selling on Amazon? No, you're not. You're going to keep on complaining about it and selling on Amazon. Now, I will say, I do get a lot of heat from it because I'm not a brand owner. I've never been a brand owner. I've never done my own product. So a lot of people look at me and say, oh, John, you don't know what it's like. You don't have any skin in the game. To that, I say, yes and no. I've worked at agencies that their success kind of hinged on my performance, right? I've worked at brands as e-com managers. That success, hinged on my performance. So yeah, it didn't directly affect my pocket per se, but that doesn't mean I don't know what you need to do. So I get it when some people say, oh, you don't know what it's like when they raise fees. I got to go elsewhere. I can't deal with Amazon. They're a monopoly. All right. Well, try and beat it, because you really can't. Now, that's not saying you can't do it omni-channel. Walmart is fantastic for products that are Walmart fit. DoorDash, Instacart, all that kind of stuff for brick and mortar. Absolutely big plays, but small chunks in the bigger picture. Now, so when someone comes to me and they're like, what can I do? Immediately it's their main hero image. You have to look at how people shop on Amazon. So like, think about the last time you bought something. What did you do? You searched something you needed in Amazon search. You probably didn't use Rufus as much as they're trying to push Rufus, right? Yeah, no one's using Rufus. They want to make it a standard. It'll never be the standard until they take Rufus and stick it in the search bar that everyone uses. The day they do that is the day that Rufus will be adopted by millions out of force. But you type in the search bar, the problem. I'm going away to Prosper in like a couple weeks. We just got 2 new kittens. My wife's like, I'm not changing litter boxes while you're in Vegas. We got to buy an automated cat litter box. She typed in automated cat litter box. She looked at what the best looking image was. She saw the price. She clicked it, looked at a couple things, hit buy. That's it. So that's the thing. You can have the world's best product that solves all the problems, but if it's not clear on your PDP, your product detail page, it's not clear in your images, they're never going to convert. But if it's not clear initially on your main hero image, you're not going to get the click. And I've talked to numerous brands that they have an amazing conversion rate, even though their listing kind of sucks. They have an amazing conversion rate, but their CTR is in the dumpster. And I tell them, all you have to do is fix your CTR, merchandise your image to get more clicks. This is what your competition is doing on the SERP. And it's funny that we're having this conversation because you're coming at it from a compliance end of things, right? And what I do is kind of bend that a little bit, right? Because Amazon's compliance is not always so cut and dry. And typically you're not dealing with image suppressions. You're dealing with probably much more serious, like full account suspensions, appeals, all that kind of thing, right? So, but from my end, it's risk reward, right? What's the risk versus what's the reward? If you push the limits on what's going to be accepted from your hero image and it's accepted and you have a good success, you get more sales. If it doesn't get accepted and you get an image suppression, that's a 2-minute fix to revert back to the old image. You will never get, I mean, Chris, correct me if I'm wrong. Have you ever seen an account get suspended or totally revoked on Amazon because they had too many image suppressions or any image issues with their main hero image?
Interesting that you ask, because images have become a hot topic lately. With images were always a hot topic with suspected intellectual property complaints. That goes without saying. But people playing with their images have been getting multiple hastens taken down or threat of takedown. And if it happens often enough, I think what your question is, if there's a quantity of those, will account health come calling? And that has just recently started to be a problem. Historically, no.
But in those categories, like I call it the no-fly zone. So there's certain categories you cannot do any of this Wild West kind of stuff with. And the no-fly zone for me is footwear or shoes. Amazon is very, very strict on you can only, based on Amazon's style guide for shoes, you can only show one shoe. You can only show it in one direction. You can't show anything else behind it. And the same goes hand in hand with media, books, like Amazon, anything that Amazon historically has pioneered or strongholded, like the Zappos acquisition years and years ago. So that's where Amazon typically says, no, 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 no. Even though Amazon has their Amazon Basics, their Amazon Essentials, their Amazon whatever, I've proven time and time again for like in skincare and wellness, Amazon says you can't show the box behind the product unless it's of value. But Amazon themselves on food storage bags shows a storage bag outside the box and the box behind it, right? So my like litmus test is, is Amazon doing it? And it's not always, I know it's do as I say, not as I do with Amazon.
Right. I mean, they break their own rules all the time, right?
But I always go with, is Amazon doing it? Number one. Number two, is an Amazon Vendor Central listing doing it? Right? That's gut check number two. And then gut check number three is is it being done on a sponsored ad? If it's being done on all three of those, it's safe to say that you can kind of go with similar merchandising, right? I've always gone with the adage of if it's aiding in the customer experience for Amazon, it's always a good thing. When does that become not a good thing? Is when sleazy people put these giant call outs, #1 bestseller, buy me now, hurry up and buy, limited supply, or they're doing things you typically can't do, right? Even Amazon in their style guides says for children's apparel, you're actually not supposed to put children models for children's clothing. It's all for children. It's all supposed to be flat lay, like kind of like a Zulily or one of those things where it's like an aerial shot. You can go look at any listing for kids' clothes. There's kids being modeled inside there, right? So it all comes down to risk reward. Now, when you say that they're cracking down, I'm willing to bet that it's on a certain category and or a certain way of doing things versus holistically being done on the hero image.
I think what's happening is there's a lot of people who are saying this is a good time to experiment with images. If what you're doing isn't to the letter of the law, your competitors are watching you with your images. And competitors know how to report violations 10 times better than 2 years ago. So if they say, this is your policy, they just report it to Amazon and they say, here's the policy. This is what this seller's doing. And they know that if the seller is caught breaking the rules and the seller appeals it saying, oh, but there's a bunch of other people doing it, that Amazon throws the appeal away. So that's why competitor reports are increasing, because you can't just show Amazon you're breaking your own rules. They don't care. And you can't show them other sellers that are breaking rules and say, I was just doing what they were doing, because Amazon's response will just be, okay, well then you're all breaking the rules. How is that an appeal?
Yeah, but I tell people, like,
that's why images are like a hotter topic right now with what we do.
I tell people, if you read the style guides for images, it'll say the packaging cannot be behind the product unless there's a value. That's literally all it says. So that can be interpreted in many different ways, right? So what's value? Showing USP, showing what's inside of it, showing XYZ, right? So that's when it comes down to who's determining what value is, right? So with the expansion of Rufus and Cosmo and AI and Amazon, I always tell people, make sure that your keyword is in your hero image anchored to product packaging. If you have actual retail packaging for your product, put it behind your product and then put your product in front of it. If you don't have retail packaging and it's a utilitarian item, a non-giftable item, for example, a USB-C data cable, probably not the best example because electronics is a little weird, but let's say it's a pack of pencils, right? We just bought pencils for my kids for school. You can put a box with all the pencils inside of it and then pencils outside the box. And then on the brown box, write 200 pack of pencils. And no one is ever going to receive those pencils in a plain brown box that doesn't say 200 pack pencils on the side and ever going to complain on Amazon, because it's not the kind of product that I'm gifting this to someone and I bought it because it said that. Where you will see that happen. What's that?
It's pencils. It's not,
pencils, right?
A gift set.
Where you will see it happen is if you're selling like a mom box or a spa box, and you make the box very ornate and it's a giftable item, and or someone can give that product as a gift as a holiday or a present, and then you don't send that. That's when you're going to hit negative reviews, because I've seen literally monster brands in the space with multi-million-dollar per month listings show packaging behind the product that there is no packaging and nobody cares.
Yeah. Interesting. So that's images. And I would just say, check out John's LinkedIn for the listing takedown material, because I've been looking at that myself. But stepping away from the day-to-day stuff that you do you have holistic conversations with people about, okay, this year's different. It's going to stay different, at least for the rest of this year. The challenges are going to be multiple and overlapping and occasionally enormous. So don't get scattered where you can't focus on any one thing and nothing gets fixed? Do you ever get into conversations about ad spend? Do you ever I mean, there's all kinds of challenges, right? There's things that you have no control over, like tariffs or whatever Amazon decides, which is what the government's deciding to do. What Amazon decides to do, you have no control over that, right? But there are things you can control. So what are the other action items that you have people focusing on in terms of, like, it's going to be a little bit of a bumpy ride, but this is what you can do to smooth it out?
A lot of people that I talk to on a day-to-day basis, this may not directly be answering your question, but it's the first thing that came to mind.
Okay.
Is people are getting agency fatigue. And what they're getting is they're going from one agency, then they're not having an amazing experience, then they're going to another agency. They're bringing that baggage with them, or not having a good experience, and not really giving the next agency a fair shot. And then they're trying to bring it in-house. Then they try to bring it to a specialist. Then they go back to an agency. So I'm finding that the trend over the next year from brands that I've spoken to is they're kind of peeling away from agencies. Are going to like their skin's going to crawl when I say this, but they're peeling away from a traditional all-in-one agency and cherry picking and curating what they want, right? So they'll get, okay, I want to go to this specific creative agency, but I'm going to handle my PPC in-house. And I have a guy that does SEO. So I think brands are getting a little bit more strategic with curation as opposed to going to the one-stop shop, because there are amazing full-service agencies out there, without a doubt. There are really, really good ones. There's also a gaggle of people that are full-service agencies, quote, that they're not full-service agencies. So and I'm sure you've seen this, right? Where someone will come to you, a brand will come to you, and they'll say, hey, can you help fix my problem? My agency can't do it. But they advertise as a full-service agency. So it's kind of like, are you full service or are you like 50% service, right? I think that term full service gets thrown around a lot, and there's very few agencies that are taking everything A to Z in-house. And again, the ones that do it do a bang-up job, but I think it's also about setting the proper expectations. Client comes in and on the sales call, they're like, I'm doing 100,000 a month. I have a 5% tacos. I want to do $300,000 a month. I don't want to raise my tacos. I don't want to raise my ad spend, and I want it done in 40 days. Okay, great. We'll sign you up on board. So I think setting the proper expectations is where a lot of agencies fail. Because a lot of agencies will just say, hey, listen, everyone's got to make it. Everyone's got to pay the bills. Everyone's got to make money. But I think sometimes saying no to people is better than saying yes. Because is it better to say yes and then have them churn in 2 or 3 months and have a bad taste about you in their mouth? Or to say no and maybe direct them to someone that's maybe a little bit more in line for what they're looking to offer or trying to get? So I think that's a big thing. I'm noticing a lot of people that I'm speaking to on my end, they're really doing that curation route and really kind of using AI. I know we were talking about that before. Some good, some bad. And AI is like LLMs is it's the 2025 version of a really fast Google, right? So, like people say, like, if I'm not feeling well and I Google my symptoms, oh my God, I have a brain tumor. Like, no, like you don't want to do that kind of stuff, right? So you don't want to leave your business in the hands of an LLM that's open source and is just whatever. But it is a good temperature check for what should I do with this? What should I do with that? Do I need a professional? Can I do this myself? But yeah, I definitely see a lot of brand owners going more the curated route.
Sweet. I think that's a good note to end on, and we've given people a lot to think about. What's the best way for people to reach you if they've got questions on this or anything Amazon related?
Yeah, so from the PickFu end, it's pickfu.com. Aspinall, just my last name, Aspinall of PickFu. Also, as you know, I went, kind of little bit on my own still at PickFu, but running my own merchandising creative agency. It's ASPI. It's actually ASPI, kind of like my last name, but it stands for Amazon Strategic Product Imagery. So I have ChatGPT to thank for that acronym that they figured that out for me. But the website for that is GoASPI, GoASPI.com, or John at GoASPI. And I focus really everything and anything on CTR and CVR and how to make more without spending more. I'm a big fan of that, right? I'm a big fan of showing people, hey, you forget about your ad spend, forget about your SEO, forget about, your inventory just for a moment. Let's look at your hero image. Let's look at your listing. Is it compelling, right? Are you doing the right things? Are you doing best practice? Because if you're not, then you're just chucking a whole bunch of money. Paid ads is expensive. After speaking to a bunch of brands, like they're spending a lot of money. So it's like, imagine spending money on a very expensive lease for a car and it looks like crap. Like, what's the point?
Or you're not, or you're never driving it, right? Exactly.
Or it has no gas.
We can have
in it,
another.
Right?
We'll have a separate conversation about ASPI for sure. But thanks for taking the time to share your expertise, your knowledge with us today. Thanks everyone for listening to another episode of Ask an Amazon Agency. And any questions, let us know. See you next time.